Hello, beautiful human beings. It's 2:59. We're almost getting ready to start. I see old friends and folks that I haven't seen for a while on this. Welcome to, this is the final session of this group of sessions that we've been doing with Dr. Tonemah. And then in May, for the 4 weeks in May, we will be doing, he will be doing a presentation on tapping on EFT. So he'll tell you more about that today in his presentation. It's 3 o'clock straight up. And I invite y'all just to take a moment and take a great big deep breath in and kind of collect yourself. You know, look around you, be present to where you're at. Taking that deep breath in and planting your feet on the ground, making a connection with this space and time. Allowing yourself to bring everything to this place, you, all of you, and creating that opportunity for your hearts to open wide and your minds to gently take in this new information. Thanks everybody for being here. And I turn you over to Dr. Darryl at this time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This is the last session for, as Andy was saying, for this group of sessions. We've been meeting here since the end of December, which is December, January, 2 months, 2 weeks in December, 4 weeks in January. I don't know, a lot. And we've covered so many things. I wanted to, since we got to have a nice pace, so we got to be kind of broad-based. And then we got to dive into these different rabbit holes that what's the brain doing, what's the physiology, what is the electrical charge, what is epigenetics, what are some tools, what is somatic work, and we've really just covered a lot of great stuff in our time together. So today we're going to finish up. We're talking about models of attachment. And then I was going to do a quick review of some of the tools that we've done. And I'll talk about the EFT first because I'm so excited. I can't wait till the end. We've talked a little bit about tapping as a tool. And it is it's actually been around for quite a while. But usually, if any new methodologies, medical methodologies, there's an arc to it. There's research, there's the development and the research of it, and then how it's rolled out publicly. And we're at the beginning of that for EFTs, becoming more and more common. Having more and more conversations about tapping in EFT. And the person who trained me on it, John D, I had kind of had this planned in my mind that I wanted to bring her in. And we would teach you guys this really simple, portable tool that you can use anywhere at any time with folks that maybe are feeling anxiety or stress or pain or addictions. If there's a very broad base in what things it can be useful with. And in the trainings when I was first getting trained, they said, try it on everything. If you have something, try it on them, point it at that and see if it works. And so we're going to give you the foundations of it in the month of May. So we'll be meeting the same time, the same place, but we'll have foundations of it. And I know Annie's working on getting a certification for through a college. So that'd be kind of cool. So I think she's sending out stuff, or she has sent out, if you're interested, signing up, that kind of thing. So I would love to see you here. Tell everybody you know, because I've done this tool on reses across the US and Canada, and people just love it because it works and it's simple. There you go. So that's coming up starting next week, for crying out loud. It's next week, May already? Oh, yeah, it is. Jeez Louise. Okay. So if you remember last week, I talked about attachment. And there was different types of how primarily the mother for better or worse, fair or not, the primary relationship in a child is the mother. And the connection with the mother, the safety with the mother, which, that just bruises my ego, because I love my 3 chocolate kids. Man, I do. I just love my kids. And just like you hear all the comedians say, my son Parker, he scores, he's gonna score a touchdown. He's gonna stand up, he's gonna say, "Hi, Mom," and that's gonna break my heart. But that's the number one relationship. So they're researching these levels of attachment. They Ainsworth and who's the other one? Maine. Researched, did observations, thousands and thousands of observations of how a mother interacted with a child, and they called it the strange incident, where they had them together and then took the mother away. They watched how they were together, then took the mother away, and then watched how the child behaved, and then put the mother back in. And themes started developing. There ended up being 4 of these primary ones. And we did 3 of them last week. I wanted to park on the last one this week, because that's what we see most of. Let me pause. I said that wrong. That's what me as a psychologist see most of. It's not what we see most commonly in the community, but it's what I see with people who struggle as adults. That's the kind of attachment that they had. So if you remember, the first one was a secure attachment. And this is 65% of all these observations that they did, thousands of observations. They found 65% of all these observations, there was good, secure attachment. So a lot of people doing a lot of good things right. And the child generally, and they were little, they're children, they were secure, they felt safe exploring, because they knew, if I go away to explore and I come back, I have a net that's going to make sure that I don't fall too far. And so they were generally happier because they had a sense of attunement, of connection, of security. The mother's response to the child was sensitive, it was consistent, it was quick when necessary to be quick, not a panicky quick, but a present quick. It wasn't a helicopter mother by any stretch of the imagination. But they were sensitive and consistent. And that's the thing. They were consistent in how they approached their child. So the child then understands and believes that trust that his or her needs will be met. I'm gonna say that again. And this is critical for healthy development of the brain. The things we've talked about, the amygdala, the limbic system, the vagus nerve, all terms that we're all familiar with now after 4 months of hanging out together. If the child knows that I'm going to do this and I'm going to be okay because there's a place where I have my needs met, and they trust that those needs are going to be met, that's secure attachment. Then there was avoidant attachment, and this was 20% of all the thousands and thousands. 20% was an avoidant connection, attachment with the mother. The child generally didn't explore much. They were emotionally distant. They were almost a little dissociated, not well connected. They didn't explore much. They kind of sat quietly. The mother was distant and disengaged. And we can probably compare this to people just sitting on their phones with the child in the room. The mother is present, but disengaged. So texting all the time, picking up the phone, talking to people, being on Facebook, being on Instagram, being TikToking all the time, because that's the most important thing. So they're doing this, so they're present, but they're disengaged. And that's real important, because I think we have a generation of people coming up saying, I'm around my kid all the time, which is great. I'm glad you're around your kid. That means you're not running around someplace. You are there, at least available for the kids, but you're not connected to the child. So they're distant and disengaged. So the baby believes, at least the vagus nerve and the survival centers, that his or her needs probably won't be met. They probably won't be met because there's too much disengagement, and the baby has to crank it up to get engagement, to have the adult put the phone down and say, what? The baby has to crank it up. So they're not sure that their needs are going to be met. That's the avoidant attachment. Next one is ambivalent attachment. And that's that was 10 to 15% of the audience. Out of the thousands of that was observed, 10 to 15% were ambivalent, not sure, either or. So ambivalent isn't lack of interest. Ambivalent is there's weight here and there's weight here. So I'm not sure which way to go. So these kids, they acted anxious. They were more insecure. They were angry, because anxious feels a lot like anger. Do you remember I talked about somatic work? Anxious feels a whole lot like anger. That my heart's beating fast, I'm hot, I'm tingly, my face is flush, I'm tight. That feels a lot like anger. So there's a lot of crossover. When you hear about anxious, I also hear a lot about anger. So there's a big tie over in those. Crossover, rather. So the mother, in response to the child's needs, was inconsistent, sometimes sensitive, sometimes neglectful, really depending on the mother's mood. Sometimes sensitive, sometimes neglectful. And not just distant, but neglectful, that there are some significant needs that are not being met. And the child is hungry or cold, really foundational things. Hungry, cold, tired, things that the brain says, well, how is the world here? Who is here to protect me? Which is critical for the first environment, is critical for the healthy development of the child's brain. So the child can't rely on his or her needs being met. And the last one that we're going to talk about today, so that was the three we talked about last time. Today, we'll finish up with disorganized attachment, which is the toughest one. That's why I want to spend a little more time on it today. So disorganized attachment, this group, the children seem to be unable to figure out how to engage with the caregivers, because they were so all over the place. They were so inconsistent. Either they were falling all over the child, or they were hitting the child, or distant from the child, or ignoring the child. So there was no barometer for the child to, well, here's the tools I have to have a relationship with you, because they weren't the same from time to time. And addictions and traumas of the adults play heavily into this, because there's so much lack of attunement in those type of relationships. So the critical issue, the big thing that came up, turned out to be that the caregivers themselves, listen to this, the caregivers themselves were a source of distress or terror to the children. Think about that. Let's let that stew for a second. And I think about myself and my kids, or myself and my own mother, who blessedly is still alive. She's on the res in New York. I'm going to see her in a few weeks. I'll say this again. The critical issue, as they observed, turned out to be the caregivers themselves were a source of distress or terror for the child. So the children in this situation, they have no one to turn to and are faced with an unsolvable dilemma. I'll say that again. They have no one to turn to, and they are faced with an unsolvable dilemma. Their mothers are, at the same time, necessary for survival and probably the biggest source of fear. And I think when I say that, I think let's look at ourselves and our own lives and how we were raised, and I mean, it gives us heart, compassion, and empathy. Because if that wasn't you, and I hope it wasn't you, we see it so much in our communities. I was, thankfully, my parents weren't that way. They were sober and together, But I can think of many people in my class that's probably, we know at the time, for crying out loud, I was a kid, that went through this. So they can't either approach the mother. That's what a secure and an ambivalent would do. They would approach the mother because they know the mother at least has some tools for this. They can't approach her, and they can't shift their attention, which is the avoidance strategy. So when you approach them, that's secure or ambivalent. Those two on there. And they can't shift their attention, and that's the avoidance strategy. Those are off the table. So what do I do to get safety, to get attuned, to connect? So they look toward the parent. These kids would look toward the parent, and they observe this. And this was kind of played out consistently. And then quickly look away. And so the infant, the child, they couldn't choose between being close to mom and avoiding, because the messages were so confusing in the brain of the child. So there's this, they're stuck. And a lot of them dissociated. These little kids would dissociate because imagine that. Even as an adult, for crying out loud. Imagine that. I have to, and I can't, but I must. And so the child brain just says, whoa, this is so much, I'm gonna unplug it. And a lot of the kids' brains learn dissociation as a tool in disorganized parenting. Not knowing who is safe or even who they belong to, which I read that phrase several times, and I looked at the research, and that's one of the things that keeps popping up in the work that I do is, who's my community? Where do I belong? Who's my tribe? And man, we're having so many young people, my friends, feel lost. And out of that lostness comes everything that we've talked about over the past 4 months. It is mental health problems, behavioral health, physical health problems, gang involvement, suicidality. And look where you pare that down is they don't know who they belong to. That's what gangs are. Let me create someplace I belong. Let me find a place where I belong. But let me not even pathologize that. Let's put that in good forms. Culture is an awesome place to belong. We just have to have a robust community that can allow that to grow in young people. And when that doesn't exist, they're creating other cultures. And I shared this with you last week. I'm finding out there's a large population of our native kids. I got the list right still. Maybe I should clean my desk someday. There's a large list of kids who have a subculture. So here's U.S. culture. Here's our tribal cultures, all 350 of them. And then within them, there's these little kids, there's subcultures where people say, I don't know how to connect to this because maybe there's been so much, I don't belong in home. So if I don't belong in the home, how can I belong to a clan or a cultural group? So I go to school and I join these other things that give me a sense of meaning or a sense of belonging. Gaming, Star Wars, anime, Dungeons and Dragons, Roblox, basketball, skateboarding, STEM, Marvel, rodeo. And those are the healthy ones. That's not even talking about subcultures of drug culture. Those are the healthy ones. So I'm not sure who they belong to, so they create or seek. And for these children, and you may see this in community, they may be intentionally affectionate with strangers, or may trust absolutely nobody. They have fright without solution. Just park on that for a second as an adult and with our adult minds. They have fright without solution. That sounds awful to me. when I go to schools, and I love going to schools. I haven't done much of it in the past 13 months. I've done a lot of the virtual ones, but I haven't been able to go to the schools. And I've shared this with you before. I'll go to school and kids will drape on me, not knowing who they belong to. They may be intensely affectionate. I'm a total stranger. Can I sit on your lap? Can I hold your hand? Will you be my dad? Just heartbreaking things that I hear. And I leave there exhausted. Many times I have, after leaving a school, I haven't told as many people this. I'll if I can, if the parking nobody can see me, I'll go in the parking lot and I'll just recline my seat and pray and just be exhausted for a little bit. If the school, like the parking lot, everybody comes out in the parking lot things, I'll drive to a Walmart a mile up the road and park in the parking lot and just lay there and just be tired, because it's that, I don't want to sound fluffy. I'll use this thing then. That charge that extends beyond us that other people pick up on, that to me has a weight, it has a presence. And I leave these schools, which I love going to, for this reason. And I'm exhausted. That their charge of desperation, you can feel it. And it's probably, if we look at the research here, it's probably a lot of kids raised in disorganized homes. They don't know who they belong to. They don't know who connect to, and they don't really know how to connect in a healthy way. Let's keep going. But parental disconnect or lack of attunement or even abuse isn't the only cause of disorganized attachment. And I really want you to hear what I'm going to say here. Parents who are preoccupied with their own trauma, such as abuse or rape in their history or recent death, or just the trauma history, may be too emotionally unstable and inconsistent to have their children borrow safety. I'm gonna say that again, because I like the phrase of us borrowing safety. Once we take care of ourselves, we have safety to share. We can loan it out. We can spread it out. But if I haven't healed, and we only heal when we are safe, otherwise the body holds this charge just in case. Just in case. So if I'm too busy stewing with my own stuff and being dissociated with my own traumas and preoccupied with my own traumas, traumatized parents need help attuning to their children's needs. And you've probably talked with folks like this, that they're not really there when you're talking to them. They're looking around, they're kind of halfway gone. And those aren't very fun conversations. Where like some folks, I'll be talking, they'll be like, and I'm looking like, what are you looking at? We're in the middle of conversation. There's just no attunement there. But it's folks that have had stuff like this that we're talking about. And not until the adults can heal. I have a lot of conversations with adults like this. And you guys aren't them. Otherwise you wouldn't be on here. The adults we're talking about here are not on this video today. Because you're already leaning in. You're probably saying, what else can I know to become better? Which, that's awesome. That's just awesome. But not until we do our own healing can we set up safe for those around us to heal. I did a talk yesterday with a tribal nation in Canada, like 4 hours. They had to be bored to tears listening to me. 4 hours. And I don't even like spending 4 hours with myself. If I could leave myself, I would. And they were talking about the spikes and things that we've been talking about during COVID season. And it was the chief and council. So there's probably 8 people on the call. And went through all the nuts and bolts stuff. And I just said, those are the facts, man. And I said, but the hard question is, how are you? How are you as an individual? Are you healing? Are you healed? Are you trying to heal? Are you stewing in your trauma? And how is the council? How are you with each other? I mean, I just expected them to hang up and you call me a big dumb animal and then leave. I said, because you can't lead your community if you haven't done your cooking yet, because the community knows, and they're going to say, well, how do you expect us to heal if you don't even do any work? And so they really, actually, it was so rewarding, because I was kind of, sometimes you get the spirit leads, and mine was saying, say it, Darryl, say it, Darryl, say it, Darryl. Apparently my spirit's from Oklahoma. Say it, Darryl. And so I said that, and it really led to just really good, healthy, well conversation where people had accountability. It was just an awesome, rewarding thing. Because once in a socio-cultural context, the leadership, as we social reference leadership, if they're healing or healed in the process of healing and taking care of each other and lifting each other, that trickles down to the community as well. So that's the same thing, is if we're too busy stewing in our own traumas, how do we connect to others? How do we attune to others? And it's almost, in a harsh way, it's almost like lateral violence, but to our children. Let's keep going. So what the baby looks like, when the mom, so when they were observing these kids, when the mom and the baby were playing, the baby gets uncomfortable. The mother has trouble reading that the baby's uncomfortable, so the mother pushes harder. Well, let me get you to pay attention to me. Let me work harder to get you to like me. And the baby screams, starts crying, and then the mother walks away. I can't do anything right. Or that's crazy baby, or whatever. Some things like that. But what she did, she missed the subtle cues that an attuned parent gets from their children. That what discomfort looks like, even before it spikes, what does this down here look like, where it just start to curve up? An attuned parent knows these subtle things in their children and can back off, so we don't push so hard. So this played out over and over and led to just more and more and more disconnection. So imagine this pattern over a lifetime of a child, and the research had shown that led in later years to abuse, physical abuse, because there was no connection. There was no sense that this person is part of me. So disorganized parenting, the parent in trauma, there's a lot of intertwine. Most often there's some sort of trauma going on with the parent, because we talk about, and we talk about families and on our res too, that man, that family is just, for generations, have been just crazy. They're just fighters. But think about how that's passed on, and put that in our cultural context. What has boarding school done, and how does that get passed on? The inability to connect, where several generations were void of everything we're talking about today, being nurtured, and then putting that back into the community, and then having kids, it becomes disorganized. Not everybody, like I said, 60% of the people, was it 60, 65? Let me see. 65% were healthy and well. If children were raised by mothers, so they wanted to study, well, what's going on here with the parent? And if children were raised by mothers with PTSD, they had a significantly higher rate of developing serious psychological problems. They had a vulnerable physiology. The child had a vulnerable physiology. I'll say that again. In this work by Ainsworth and I think Maine, if children are raised by mothers with PTSD, they had a significantly higher rate of developing serious psychological problems. the children grew up with a vulnerable physiology. That's when I always tell folks, I tell parents when they come in with kids, who are you being? And I always talk to the parent and I say, maybe you and I need to, because they'll bring the child in and say, my kid's cray, and you need to fix my kid. And 100% of the time I'll say, can we set up time, just you and me? Because the parents are stressed. The parents have stuff going on. Okay. And if there's not that connection, the child becomes physiologically vulnerable. And their body becomes vulnerable, even to the point where, like at burn centers, children who were well connected, well attuned to their parents, their mother, required less morphine than kids that had disorganized parents. I'll say that again, even to the point of pain. Children connected to their mothers required less morphine than kids who had disorganized parenting, poor attunement. If you have no internal sense of security, it's difficult to distinguish between safety and danger. So here is going back a few weeks to our somatic work, somatic experiencing work. How do you know what this information is? There you go. I think that's how I want to say it. How do you know that this is not fear, this is excitement? How do you know that? Well, because it's been modeled and I've been excited and been safe. But if you've always had this because of the adult, then there's never been safety connected to this, what this is. And so they have trouble distinguishing between what is safe and what is danger. So if you feel chronically numb, potentially dangerous situations make you feel more alive. So as they grow, if this has occurred and they grow, you get into drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, cutting. I've had people say, literally, I do all this because I just want to feel something. I just want to feel something. And what you and I would consider like a 10 at level of danger or excitement, that's like a 2, but it's something. They finally feel something. And if you come to the conclusion based on the information you're getting from a disorganized parenting, disorganized home, if you feel, why else would your parents have treated you this way? Think of a child's brain now. A child isn't saying, well, my mother has PTSD and she's really struggling with. That's not what the child thinks. The child, all they gets is the message is, you're not worthy. You're not worthy of my time, of my attention, of my love. Because in the child's brain, why else would a parent treat me this way unless I was awful? So I must be awful. So then you start expecting people to treat you that way. And there's your foundation for toxic relationships. Serially toxic relationships, because that's, what else is there? This is how I understand the most significant love in my life. Thought it was horrible. So let's take this out and replace it with someone that fills that same gap, because that's how we understand that. So parents who don't know how to attune their child due to their anxiety, fears, and traumas. As you remember, we talked about what stress and anxiety feels like. It's bringing the past into the present. And we are reliving a past situation. But in the present, I have a child sitting in front of me crying and hungry. But in my disorganized way of being with, they don't know what to expect from me because I'm in the middle of a PTSD episode. I'm in the middle of a flashback. So, but they're crying and hungry, and I look distant and angry. But then the episode ends in the future. Maybe I'm more connected somehow. Maybe I pick them up and they stop that up. So, but the third time after that, I'm distant again. So that's all over the place. So they did a longitudinal study, they did 20 years to the disorganized attached children, and found that emotional withdrawal, even if a parent is yelling at a kid, that was better than emotional withdrawal. I'm not saying that's a good parenting technique, but it was present. They acknowledged the child. Emotional withdrawal had the most profound and long-lasting impact on the children as they became adults. Emotional distance and role reversals. Mothers expected the kids to look after them. Mothers were seeking attunement from the kids, taking care of them. And you've heard stories, and I've heard a lot of things that they had to take care of mom and dad when they were drinking and clean them up and get them off the floor, those kind of things. Mothers expected the kids to look after them. So this type of attachment was specifically linked, listen to this, to aggressive behavior against self and others into adulthood. This type of attachment was specifically linked to aggressive behavior against self and others in young adults. And just broadly, the outcomes were worse across the board. Health, finances, life satisfaction, incarcerations, everything all the bad stuff, all the things you didn't want to have was connected to this. Now, I want to make this qualifying statement, that development is not linear. And many life experiences can intervene or change outcomes. I'm saying that again because that's important. That's why we do what we do. That's why you're on here. That's why I do what I do, because we understand that we can change. We understand the human potential and possibility. When we really glom on to understand that there's human potential, there's human possibility for every child, for every person, we run toward it then. That's what you're doing on here today. That's what I'm doing on here today. That's why Annie set this whole thing up, because we want to run toward it. Because we believe that. And we believe it because it's true. So I'm going to say this again. Development is not linear, and many life experiences can intervene or change outcomes. So when you meet a teacher, a counselor, mom becomes sober, you heal a relationship with family, a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. It's hard to know exactly what that thing is, but that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's why we don't stop trying. And that, and I can honestly say, as I look into your amorphous figures, that moment when a person gets it, they turn the switch, they start turning the ship, the light goes on in their head. That is awesome. And you guys are on here because you believe that's true. So just in our last 10, 15 minutes that we get together before we bring in another guest, we won't get this time together for a while. And I'll miss you guys, for crying out loud. Some simple things. Some of the tools we've talked about, I just wanted to go over them just shortly, just quickly, because they're in the videos and things. And just go back, and when I talked about somatic experiencing, any good foundation of this work is going to be, what information is my body giving me? If you remember the vagus nerve, the dorsal and the ventral vagus nerve, it's all this information comes north. It's the second brain. All this information comes north, and then we just have to decide what we're going to do with this information. And one of the most powerful things you can do with this information is nothing. A lot of good things can come out of doing nothing. Winnie the Pooh. I like to get a lot of my wisdom from Winnie the Pooh. Waiting. We've talked about breathing it down. Don't label it. Spend time getting to know it. Then use the sensation words of where it is and what it is and what it is doing next. That is a powerful, powerful tool. Getting to know this information. Using breathing as more than just, well, that's a cool idea. Remember that the inhale through the nose activates the sympathetic nervous system, and the exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So remember, when you activate that long exhale, sends acetylcholine to the heart to slow the heart down. And we're trying to create heart rate variability. If you can feel yourself getting, look how this goes now. You feel this information, let's call it activated. We're not calling it fear, anger, excitement. We're calling it nothing. We're not calling it anxiety. It's just information. My heart's beating fast. Let me slow that thing down. Remember, it takes about 6 cycles to do that, of breathing in and out. 3 counts in, pause, 7 counts out. But it starts with what is even occurring. Your body's giving you information. Don't label it right away. Otherwise, you're going to start this spiral. I have anxiety. This is anxiety. This is anxiety. Well, of course it is, because you've labeled it as anxiety and you're already running down the road, dude. Wait. Next one. Keep going. Simple things to help your body help you. Simple things to help your body help you. And I like to call it the behaviors of culture, which I think is a really powerful thing. Eat what you grow, what you hunt, and what you fish. There you go. Eat what you grow, what you hunt, what you fish. That's a behavior of culture. Lean meats, high protein, lower carbohydrate. There you go. Lean meats, higher probiotic, high protein, less carbohydrate. Eat what you fish, eat, hunt, and grow. That helps your body help you. It creates more flora in the pit of the stomach. Do you remember that? And then the vagus nerve takes that and sends it up north to the brain. The brain says, let me create some dopamine, which is my motivating chemical in the brain. So eating well creates the probiotic, which helps the flora in the stomach, and this information goes to the brain. Simple thing, eating right, drinking enough water, staying hydrated, and let your body operate the way that it's supposed to operate for you. Getting enough sleep. If you're on this call, you're probably around the 7 to 9 hour sleep range, folks. Getting enough sleep, 7 to 9 hours, but what's really important is waking up at the same time every day. Not being 6:30 to 10:30 range. That's too broad of a range. Getting up at the same time every day, because the brain, the stress brain loves structure. The stress brain loves structure and loves to know what to expect and what's happening. So if I get up at this day, it just starts setting itself. Then you get up and you have a higher protein, probably more higher fat in the morning than the rest of the day, to get so your body stays elevated with energy. A high carbohydrate is going to bottom out. It's going to stay like that to your next sleep. So you set your clock at the same time every day. That's more important actually than falling asleep at the same time every day. Waking up at the same time every day. Higher fat, higher protein breakfast. Water, exercise. You remember we talked how exercise helps the vagus nerve with vagal tone. Going out and walking, just walking. And for me, I pretty much follow these. If you, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or not. What is my name on Instagram or Facebook? I think it's just Darryl Tonemah. And so I tried to have some higher protein breakfast and pretty much smoked myself out of the house. But I try to have get up and go for a run and then have some breakfast and drink water and all these things like that, that resets the body. I try to have a pattern every morning. And then I make sure I have time for kids and wife and guitar and reading. That's pretty much my day. I'm a pretty boring dude. Next one, do you remember doing horse lips? Try it. And this is embarrassing because there could be nobody trying this, but try it with me. But we tried it before. Remember, horse lip loosens the muscles in the face and creates a sense of well-being. Because you've done that before. And why did you do it? Why did you do horse lips before? Just randomly got in your car because your coworker, your honey was being all somehow, they all stank. And you got in your car and why did you do that? Look at the inhale for one thing. Look at the exhales long. Then it loosens my facial muscles. You're trying to have regulation. And that's what we're going to learn that's really cool about tapping is we're just going to use these things that you're trying to use for regulation already anyway. Your body's already seeking it. We're just going to make it work for you. Creating heart rate variability, help with vagal tone. Do you remember that? And that was really everything we talked about. The exercise and the breathing primarily are going to create heart rate variability. Yoga, remember I thought yoga, but yoga creates all sorts of heart rate variability. And that's really the marker for is your body under stress or not? Is it under duress? And the poorer your heart rate variability, the poorer your health outcomes are in the future. So you want to be healthy in the future, take care of that now. That way your heart, the variability is working for you, your body is working for you. Do you remember tongue talk? Where you put your tongue behind the ridge in your mouth like this, and you talk like this. I think in my head you guys sing happy birthday. Happy birthday. I'm just sitting in my bedroom talking to myself and singing with my tongue in my mouth. Happy birthday. Vibrating that, it actually relaxes the dura mater in the brain. It creates heart rate variability. And like I said before, try arguing with your honey. Next time you and your honey get in an argument, say, let's argue, but using tongue talk. And it's about impossible to stay mad at somebody when you're talking like this. So just give it a shot. Save marriage. Okay. Next. The glial cells, I've talked to you about glial cells, which are the custodian of the brain that kind of watch what you're attending to on a regular basis. If you're not attending to it, then it vacuums it up because we don't have unlimited gigawatts. So part of empowerment, which is a fluffier word, but it's the capacity, the belief that you can control the self enough to achieve your goals. Empowerment. And glial cells are watching what you're attending to, watching what you're thinking about, watching what you believe about yourself. Also, my friends, just in this last couple of minutes, you have to believe good things about yourself, about your community, about your family, about who you can be, who you are, and what you can be. Maybe you're not who you want to be yet. So it's not I can't, it's I haven't yet, which creates opens a door for possibility that if I become sovereign, and even just what my body is doing, that creates my sovereignty in my thoughts about myself, and that creates sovereignty about my beliefs, and that creates sovereignty in my behaviors. And so you're just stacking all this sovereignty, and pretty soon you have become. And then with this healing becomes safe. You become safe and you heal just by your presence. You can begin healing in your home and in your community. Don't try to heal other people first. Heal yourself first, because it makes it easier for you to be next to them, and they can borrow your safety. And our last 4 or 5 months have been just that. What is it? Where is it? What is it doing? And what tools do I have to develop it? That's kind of how I put the whole thing together. And today, on our final conversation like this, I really encourage you to take that journey. And if you need to have a partner with somebody and say, you know what, I really want to try this and I want you to hold me accountable, that's cool too. But for me, and I don't say this lightly because our lives aren't to be taken lightly. We can still laugh and tease each other, but we get one life. And this is it. We're in the middle of it right now. And I really want you to make the most of yours and enjoy yours and create communities with each other that we all as Native people can heal together. Does anyone have questions or comments?